Okay, so I thought it was about time that I spoke to you about my awakening journey and my story. It's definitely a black sheep turns into multi-dimensional dragon story. So yeah, let's go. I grew up with my grandparents from about the age of 7 in a tiny little village called Baldock. If you imagine Hobbiton in Lord of the Rings, yeah, that you've got it. It was a beautiful childhood. It was safe. I could go play in the woods. I was a real tomboy. I still am. So I was free. I was a free, feral little woodland child, building nests and dens, trying to catch frogs, that sort of thing. And then I had a pretty turbulent childhood. I was quite rebellious. I didn't want to fit in with the system. I had emotional ups and downs, lots of bad dreams. Obviously, back then I didn't know that I was psychic, but I do remember spending lots of time in nature talking to the elementals and things like that. I remember that now. I forgot that through my, let's call it, muggle sleep phase in my 20s, 30s and 40s. So I moved out of home very young. I was 17. I had a big argument with my mum. I was living in London, and then moved in with my boyfriend into a really shitty area of London, and decided it would be a really good idea to start stripping for money. I wanted an easy way out, and I didn't want to get a job or be part of the system. I was at university at the time. I actually started off doing a law degree and I was stripping at night. Yeah, the irony. And I lasted 6 months because I didn't like it. I was a very creative soul. I still am. And you can't be creative with the law. You've just got to learn it and then regurgitate it, parrot fashion. So then I changed my degree to shoe design and marketing, something a little bit more creative, which I loved. And then I carried on table dancing, stripping, and then that obviously led me into more of the underworld, staying out late, doing lots of drugs, not that healthy. So then I had to make a change. And also the table dancing doesn't teach you any respect for money, right? Because it's easy come, easy go. So then I got a job as a door hostess in one of the clubs in London. And then after a year, blagged my way into being the events manager there. And then that's when my career took off and I learned on the job. Events management really suited me. Events management for restaurants, private members bars, that sort of thing. And then through all of that, I met Sebastian, who was to become my husband. We were together for 11 years. Initially, the sparks flew. It was very exciting. He was very charming. He said all the right things. We had lots of fun. And now, looking back, I know that he was a serious covert narcissist with severe anger issues and trauma, bonding, and all of those great things. So the empath and the narcissist, it's a tale as old as time. And the reason why we go for narcissists is that we end up being cracked open and broken by them. Because generally the empath is sensitive and the narcissist can feed off that energy, and the empath feels loved because that you get love bombed. So I was about to say gaslighted. I mean, you do that, you do get that as well. So yeah, at first it was really exciting. Then it turned into serious drug addiction because I needed to numb. He was very extroverted, very loud. I was very quiet, and my nervous system was getting triggered. So it was, yeah, lots of parties, lots of sleepless nights, very abusive, everything's transactional. And then slowly my friends started to drop off and it was just me and him. And then we moved to Cape Town. We moved to Cape Town for his work. And we moved into a house in Fresnay that had a demon in the garage. I kid you not. And I know why now that that whole thing happened. It was actually the start of my awakening. I remember I was never ever happy with being in the garage. It always made me shivery. We had 2 dogs. They didn't want to go in there. I remember my mum was tidying up the garage and she felt faint. The house was owned by an Englishman who committed suicide, not on the property, and it was a quick sale. And of course we were like, yeah, great, that sounds awesome, great deal, let's go. And then my husband's younger brother died in a bike accident in Cape Town. And then all the family came, and obviously the grief. So these entities and energies, they feed off negative emotions. So you can imagine a whole house full of grieving people really fed that demon. And I remember one night I went into the garage because the fridge was in the garage, opened the door, turned the lights on, and that split second between light and dark, I saw it. I saw the demon. It went straight through me. It gives me shivers to think about it right now. So I immediately called my mentor, Lila. You can find her on Instagram. She is amazing. Lila, she's a multi-dimensional seer and healer, and she's been with me through this whole journey. I called her in, and she couldn't believe how overrun the house and the street was, with this demonic entity hiding in the garage. And then it had these little minions that were like going all over the road, picking up on people's sadness, creating negative vibrations and distortions, and feeding off of it. So we cleared that, and that was about 4 years before I really got serious about my awakening. And from that point to 2020, when I went into rehab, I fucking spiraled big time. I was miserable. I didn't want to be in the marriage. My husband would trigger me. He was abusive. You know, we had great friends, and on the surface it looked amazing. It was party, party, party over the weekend, and then come like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he would be a demon, literally not a nice person. So I was at my wit's end, and I actually ended up taking an overdose. I took an overdose, wrote a letter, and I didn't want my life to end. I just wanted that life to end, and I couldn't see a way out, because that is the energy of addiction, right? It wants you to feel helpless. It wants you to feel isolated, and it wants you to feel like you can't ever get out of this situation. And I remember I took a whole bottle of Xanax, drank a load of alcohol, and lights out. And then I met Source, or an angel, or whatever you want to call it, a very high dimensional being. And they were just like, what the fuck are you doing? You got to wake up, and it's not your time, so back you go. So I woke up again, and immediately called my mum, moved into my mum's house. Now that night, my mum and I were sat around the kitchen table. We just had a glass of red wine, that was it. And I remember she closed her eyes, and then she started moving in a very strange way, and I was just like, are you okay? And then she's like, my daughter, where are you from? She had her eyes closed. And then I was like, leaned forward, and I was like, well, my soul is from Sirius, but I am a traveler. And the hand came out and went, and it wasn't her grip, it was very strong. It grabbed me, and it was like, my daughter, it is time for you to wake up. You are needed now on this planet. This is why you are here. This is your call. And I felt this very strong energy. It was almost quite Kundalini, very strong. And it made me feel very sick and queasy, and I had to lay down on the kitchen floor. And all these geometric shapes came in and started reconfiguring me. I could feel it around my heart center, plugging me into a different system. And my mum had just come out of hospital. She had broken a bone in her ankle, so she had like a big plastic boot on. And I remember seeing this plastic boot, and on the other foot, her walking towards me. But the thing is, she wasn't walking with a limp. She was just walking normally. I thought it was a bit strange. She came around. She started tapping on my head and saying all of this light language, and then almost glitching and being like, no, she's scared, reconfigure. And then we must have lost about 3 hours. I came to, she came to, I said, are you okay? And she's like, what happened? I went out of my body, and I was in this blue energy, and all these female hands were like on my shoulders saying, thank you for having Marsha, and thank you for being a mum to her. And then she said, I think they've put me in back to front. So she felt like she'd been put in the wrong way around, which was quite disconcerting for her. And then my mum's got a great sense of humor, right? So she's like, typical, it's always about you. She goes, first contact I have with high dimensional beings, and they use me as a telephone. So I slept on it. And the next day I called my guide, my mentor, Lila. We had a chat, and I booked myself into rehab. And then the real healing started, and it's been a long journey. That was 6 years ago. And a good 3 of those years were spent using many different healing modalities. I didn't want to use any medication. I've always had a strong connection to whole foods, raw foods, that type of stuff. So I went back to what I know, healing myself with high vibrational foods, and then looking at other different modalities. So all of those modalities that I found that really worked for me, I've now certified and trained in. So integrative health, neuro-linguistic programming, EFT tapping, and stress response coaching. So just working with the nervous system. And then I had my Kundalini awakening. Once I sort of cleared out all the crap and sorted my nervous system out, my energy came in. So I work with the dragons, but I channel Christ consciousness. I don't channel any other entities or beings. I keep it very simple. And I'm able to remove density and entities and all sorts of blocks from people, and by doing that, allowing more of their beautiful soul frequency to come in. And just like integrative health, we are multi-layered beings. We are not simple beings. You know, we have an energy field with many different layers. Then we have our physical body, and then we also have our mind as well. So all of these things need to be aligned, for healing to occur. And I often tell my clients, so the fastest healing cells in the body are the epithelial cells of the gut lining. They renew every 3 days, not all at once, obviously. But if that's the case, then why have you been suffering with gut issues for the last 5 years, if that's the case? It's because there's a code somewhere, and there's a root cause, a trauma that happened to you that's running the code, that's creating this illness, and it's also being expressed through the physical body, with the mind and the energetic field. So all of that needs to be sorted out. And without fail, most illnesses are from a root cause. So what we do is we locate the root cause, we get in touch with it, we don't push it down, we get in touch with it, we say, I see you, and then we start to work with that. And that's how I work. And really, I am so honored to be able to do the work that I do. I'm constantly learning from my experiences and work with my clients. They teach me so much. Every day is a school day. And I work in person and online, in person from my healing center in Cape Town. And I also work with animals as well. I work with horses and dogs. So if that resonated with you in any way, or maybe you have been resonating with the dragons recently, and maybe that's why this video has reached you, because I walk with the dragons and they walk with me, and I'm very honored to weave their energy into the medicine that I bring into this reality. So if any of that resonated with you, please get in touch. I am a generator in human design, so I'm great at responding. So if you reach out, I'm definitely going to respond back and we can have a great chat. And I'm sending you so much love.